One. Tonight we have a discussion regarding. Yes, sir.
Sorry to interrupt. Will you give Gordon a countdown?
Yes.
Because I believe this is televised or being recorded.
Good call. Good call. Yes, I will do that. Gordon, here's your countdown. In. Camby, welcome to the Camby Urban Renewal Agency work session for December 1st, 2021. We are going to call the meeting to order here at 6:02 p.m. And tonight we have a work session to discuss for discussion regarding potential projects. So I will go ahead and turn this over to Scott Archer, our Urban Renewal Agency Director, to discuss the projects that are potentially on the board here. So Scott, it's to you.
Yes, thanks. Good evening, Chair Barwig and Urban Renewal Commissioners. As Chair Barwig was saying, tonight's discussion this is a work session, and the idea is to follow up on some prior discussions that you had as an Urban Renewal Commission regarding the refinancing of the urban renewal debt and the potential use or uses of those refinanced funds that are available to you, and just some general discussion on the urban renewal district. You probably recall, for those that were on the commission, we refinanced the district debt earlier this year, and with your support, we were able to save about $6 million because of the very favorable interest rates that are available. And what that means is we've got, in essence, we have about $6 million in revenue that the district did not previously have before the refinancing. So there are some different options that we can explore with that. We talked about some of those, and in the last time that we discussed this with you as an Urban Renewal Commission board, there seemed to be a general consensus to move forward in exploring some uses of those funds. So that's essentially what we're back to do tonight. What I'm going to do is ask Jamie Stickle, our Economic Development Director, to walk you through a presentation, just kind of an overview of the background, and then talk about some of the options that you have before you look at some of the potential projects that had been discussed previously. And so we'll have Jamie walk through the presentation, and then I'm sure there will be discussion around that, and staff will be here to help answer questions. I would note we also have Jerry Nelzine, our Public Works Director, here to help answer questions. And then, of course, Joe Lindsay, City Attorney, as always, is here to help answer questions that we may have. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jamie at this point.
Great. Thank you, Scott. Hello, Jamie. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you. Good evening. I'm just going to take a minute to pull up my presentation. And just to make sure, can everybody see that presentation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we see the presentation. The question will be whether it advances as you move forward.
Yes, I will let you know as soon as I advance the first slide so that you can stop me and move on. As Scott said, tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of the projects that we're going to talk about this evening, just most recent history. Talk a little bit about the current projects that are underway and some of the proposed projects that have been discussed in urban renewal meetings in the past. And then also give just a little bit of background on the Urban Renewal Agency, Urban Renewal District, as well as the Camby, Oregon 99E and Gateway Design Plan. So I am advancing the first slide. Can you see that new slide? Great, thank you. So at the May 5th Urban Renewal meeting, the former finance director brought the discussion regarding refinancing the debt and then possible uses of urban renewal funds. At that time, the agency determined that they would continue to explore how to use the refinanced debt to finish projects that were currently unfinished, but had been outlined in some way in the urban renewal plan. Approximately, there was $6 million savings. And the assumption is that the urban renewal district will sunset in 25-26. And then also we wanted to note that the savings could be used to pay off the urban renewal debt and close the urban renewal district sooner than 25-26, or it could also, the potential is that the urban renewal agency could extend the life of the urban renewal district if desired. So to talk about a couple different projects that are currently underway, obviously we have the administrative costs, but then also the facade grants. So I've included before and after photos of the Bikes and More Camby Trophy building, and then also Quiet Zone and Arch, and then some photos that were graciously provided by Jerry Milsey, our Public Works Director. So those are current and continued uses of the remaining URA funds. Then at the April 21st Urban Renewal Agency meeting, staff had outlined the list of possible uses for remaining urban renewal funds. So those, and I'm just going to go through the list. Paint the logging trail bridge over Highway 99, install footbridge access to the logging trail bridge at the south side of Fred Meyer's, add water line, bathrooms, and sewer to Community Park, finish Northwest 2nd Avenue from Grant Street to Elm Street, finish 1st Avenue to 2nd Avenue on 1st Street and Grant Street, finish Northwest 1st Avenue from Elm Street to Douglas Street, work on Township Road from Baker Prairie Middle School to Sequoia, redo 12 downtown alleyways, which would be 1st through 4th, Ivy through Cedar, and then also Waite Park improvements. And those are in no particular order, I should note. And then another additional project that has been previously discussed was the Highway 99 beautification. And it is somewhat ineligible for urban renewal district funds because the landscaping along Highway 99 and adjacent to the logging trail bridge, some of this is outside the urban renewal district, excuse me. So the projects itself were the landscaping along Highway 99 and adjacent to the logging trail bridge, the installation of colored concrete on Highway 99, which we've done in different areas of town, and then adding additional some artwork and or decorative fencing along the logging trail bridge. We wanted to include a map, the urban renewal map, just so that you could see that on the area near the logging trail bridge, which I will zoom in the next slide, is outside the urban renewal district. So it would be the location that is closest on Highway 99, closest to Fred Meyer. So we'll just get a closer look at that the logging trail bridge itself, so maybe artwork could be part of the urban renewal projects, but it's possible that landscaping would not. Oh, Sarah, did you have a question, Councilor or Commissioner Spoon?
Thanks. Yeah, I had a question about the funding, so I was trying to get it while that original thing was up about whether or not we can extend it, close it early, all of that. Mm-hmm. So that slide says that that we could use the funds to close the URA early. Sorry, I mean it's like 3 slides back probably now. But we could also extend it. But I was under the impression that if we spent the savings from refinancing, it would neither extend nor shorten it. I mean, it could shorten it if we didn't spend all of them, but if we spent all of the $6 million, we would keep the same exact urban renewal sunset potential date, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
I think the point of that was that there are possibilities that it could be extended, but that we can use that $6 million savings from the refinancing within the 25-26 sunset date, and also that some of the projects that we have talked about in the past would be things that we would be able to accomplish within that time period as well.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to make sure that the third, like C, we could spend the money and keep the same closing date is also an option, yes. Right? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So one of the things that we wanted to do was to provide the urban renewal district goals per the adopted urban renewal plan. And on our website in the actual plan, it lists goals and objectives. But to make this somewhat short, I just listed the goals. So goal 1, to diversify the economic base and family wage jobs within the district. Goal 2 was to maintain effective, efficient, and safe traffic system for vehicular and pedestrian users. Goal 3 was to improve and retain existing businesses. And goal 4, to improve attractive visual amenities for customers and community members throughout the district. We also, Scott Archer and Jerry Naldine and I took a look also at the urban renewal plan. And in that plan, it discusses a description of projects to be undertaken and specifically calls out public improvements such as street construction and circulation improvements, infrastructure and utility improvements, public facilities, parks, recreation, pedestrian and bike corridors, and other amenities, and then upgrades to fire protection and emergency response system. We also pulled out the Camby, Oregon 99E corridor and gateway design plan, which is a bit of a mouthful, but this was a plan that was adopted in June of 2012. And one of the things that they examined quite specifically was what they called the Malala River Pathway Bridge, which we call the Logging Trail Bridge Path or the Logging Trail Bridge. And so some of the suggestions from that plan around the Logging Trail Bridge were that the design should reflect an artful blending of 2 different themes. So 1 is the garden spot and 2 is creating a gateway using that bridge. It also suggested continuing the decorative railroad fencing from the fairgrounds to the bridge. And I should note, I have the examples from the plan will follow in the next 3 slides. So the decorative fencing, pedestrian scale lighting on the bridge and pathways approaching the bridge, architectural accent lighting, stonework for column decoration, which is they suggested would be similar to the fairgrounds, artistic metalwork using the garden spot theme, decorative paving, and attractive gateway landscaping. So before you have they called it the picket style fencing, similar to the railroad fencing. And then some suggestions of architectural ironwork that could be added to that picket style fencing, as well as examples of metalwork. And that for, I would say 3 out of 4 of them are garden spot themes in and of itself. Ornamental pathway lighting. So there were two suggestions there that are 2 recommendations in the plan for ornamental pathway lighting. And then also lighting the bridge structure itself. And then the plan had this picture, which also, again, highlighted that there would be suggestions for sidewalk enhancements, decorative paving, column decoration, and landscaping. And so we noted again, I know I mentioned before, but the Urban Renewal District does not encompass all of these beautification recommendations. The items in dark blue are outside the Urban Renewal District. So that would be the sidewalk enhancements and the decorative paving. But the items in light blue are inside the Urban Renewal District, which would be the column decoration and landscaping. All of those photos are from the Camby, Oregon 99E corridor and gateway design plan, just as mentioned. And I think we have hands raised. So I saw Commissioner Bangs just go up, which maybe means that Commissioner Hodson's was first, but if you would like to either.
Jamie, before anybody asks questions, are you okay with answering questions throughout, or would you like us to wait until the end of the presentation to ask me questions?
I'm happy to answer questions. And I think that my only thought is that it may be that also we'll need Scott. So I don't know if that makes more sense to wait till the end so that he can come up and join, but I'm happy to field the questions now and he could join me now if we need to.
Perfect. So I think the way that we'll do this is we'll let people ask questions. And if you feel it's something that needs to wait till the end, go ahead and just mention that we'll wait till the end for that question and we will revisit it. And I'll put it on a parking lot to make sure we come back to it. So Commissioner Banks, you had your hand up first, I believe, and then Vice Chair Hodson.
Thank you. As regards the sideway enhancements, will ODOT potentially do any of that when they redesign this or redo this? I was just curious if anyone knew the answer to that.
Yeah.
And we can wait. And I'm not in a huge hurry to find that out.
Regarding that question, and that might come up in some of the other discussion about the projects here, but so as we know, ODOT is going to be doing the major renovation of 99 through town here over the next about 18 months or so, I think, somewhere in that range. So they did not include a lot of the beautification items that are in our corridor plan in their plan. Their plan is a bit more, I guess, what you would call maybe utilitarian, and things beyond that they didn't include. Myself and some of our other staff, Jerry and I think Joe and Jamie met in different times with ODOT. We made the request to them whether they would consider adding these items, and it's a bit late in the process because they're pretty close to kind of wrapping up design and putting it out to bid. But they essentially said they could consider adding items, but it would be at the city's cost. They have figured out, and we just got this answer somewhat recently. So it's kind of a long answer to say their answer to us was we'd have to move quickly if we wanted them to include items that are not already in their plan, but we would have to pay for those. And this is jumping ahead a little bit in the conversation, perhaps, to some of the things that you might want to talk about with projects. But because of their recommendation, and they were kind of looking at some cost estimates for them to do the project, the added items within their project. Based on what we heard, we think it would be best if there are items that either the Urban Renewal Commission or the City Council wants us to consider, we would suggest exploring doing those separate from ODOT's project. Of course, there might be some coordination and perhaps some overlap, and they're aware of that. But given the rapid timeline that they're on, and given their I think their cost estimates might be based on kind of a premium pricing based on, that they're going to have to work to add things and those types of things. We'd probably be better off exploring what items you might want to have us explore and bring back some pricing and timing estimates on those. I hope that makes sense. That was kind of a long answer to a fairly short question, but I think it goes to some of the other items that we might be talking about here. So ODOT basically said, we're willing to work with you guys, but we're not going to pay for added items at this point. And, again, I think our recommendation is let's think about a way to do those things on our own, because we can probably do them a bit more efficiently, maybe more cost effectively. Anything, Jerry, that you would have to add? Yeah, they could. Jerry, I was just double checking. Jerry Nalzine was reminding me, we did talk about one of the items that they thought they could do pretty efficiently was the colorized concrete or paving within the project at those gateways that, again, we'd still be paying for, but maybe they wouldn't be as challenging for us to work with them to do those as for the other items like landscaping and other decorative things.
Great. And that decorative paving, as the slide shows, it's outside of the scope of the URD, correct? So that would be something not that we would discuss in this body, but rather in City Council.
That is correct. We would have to explore some other funding, because that from the logging road bridge north, I know it's not exactly north, but that direction on 99, 99 itself is outside the URA district.
Perfect. Vice Chair Hodson.
Let's hang here.
Thank you, Chair Varwick. Appreciate it. Jamie, thanks. I guess that was part of my question, was looking at this picture. Landscaping to the north side of 99E, agency can do, or the district can pay for, but on the south side of 99, agency cannot.
Let's go back to the.
Yeah, because I think it encompasses both sides.
Yeah, that's. We're going to pull back the map here of the district and look at it.
This is the walking.
Yeah, so the highlighted colorized area is the district boundary. So I'm not certain if I understood the question exactly, but so can you do the mouse again? Can you see the arrow that we're running over the area with the mouse?
Yes.
That's the zoomed out picture. But the zoomed in picture here, yeah. So this is the logging bridge that, if you can go back across. So the logging bridge, and then going north, that's out of the URD, but actually south is in the URD on 99. But there are some adjacent areas here. Let me grab that. There are some areas that are outside of the 99 highway right of way. So where I'm at right now, this is set back in a little ways from the highway, where this is in fact in the urban renewal district. So that last slide that we had up a little bit ago with showing that there were some landscaping areas that we could do is this area here, and then kind of a little further in from 99, we could do some work here, but it's not directly adjacent to 99. And it's not within, I don't believe it's within the ODOT right of way. Does that answer your question?
It does, which then leads into part, I guess the second question off of that is, so if we run any kind of a ramp or anything off of that bridge, we can't do that on the south side of 99E.
We have that on.
We actually, if you want to hold that thought for just a few minutes, that's highlighted on one of our upcoming slides. And we actually, we have a way that we can do that with urban renewal funding that fits within the district boundaries.
Okay, thank you.
Get to that in just a little bit here. Is that all the questions?
I believe,
okay.
I believe so, yeah. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Go ahead, Jamie, with the presentation.
So that was a great question, Vice Chair Hodson. One of the things that was in that corridor and gateway design plan was spoke about access improvements to the logging trail bridge. The 2012 plan identified a 600-foot path to connect the south side sidewalk on Highway 99E and the logging trail bridge. It would require a retaining wall and fencing due to the slope traversal. And then it also called out specifically that the north side access improvements, that those should be developed in conjunction with the Pine Street improvements as recommended in the TSP. And then in this slide, you'll also see a rendering or a drawing that was put together by Kern McLeod, and it was included that talks about how to add the bridge access traversing to Highway 99. Commissioner Smith?
Thank you. Maybe it's my eyesight. So can you put your cursor over where the bridge is and then where the trail would be?
Yes.
I'm having a hard time delineating between all the lines there.
So the logging trail bridge comes
this
way. And I can also send this, I can send the plan to you, but also send this part to you. So the logging trail bridge kind of comes this way. And then I think this is the slope. Right.
Gotcha. So it's actually on the south side of the bridge.
Yes.
Okay.
It would connect the south side sidewalk on the south side of the bridge.
Okay. Sorry. It's like my eyes. I can't see it all that small on the screen. Thank you.
And then we identified a couple of or a few next steps. So the Urban Renewal Agency could provide city staff with direction, and that could be on which projects, and I can pull that project list back up, on which projects the Urban Renewal Agency would like to see further explore, which could include contracting with an engineer or architectural firm to create project scopes and cost estimates. Then we would bring those the scope and estimates back to you. You could provide staff with direction on other projects not previously discussed, but that fit within the urban renewal plan, or to do nothing and pay off the urban renewal debt. And so we'll leave those three options. I can go back to that project list, and that is the end of my presentation. I'm happy to switch back and forth throughout in case we need to look at any other slides and take another look at them.
Great, thank you so much, Jamie. I appreciate it. So I do have a couple of questions that I was going to ask, and these options are great. So we currently have a sunset date on the URA of 25-26, correct?
That's correct.
And at one point that was 24-25, so we pushed it out a year from the original sunset date. Is that right?
That's my understanding. My understanding is that that was the original sunset date, but some point in time, a few years back, that was decided to be extended out to 25-26.
If we paid off the URA and sunsetted it early, how early would we be able to sunset it? If we did none of these, how early would we be able to sunset the URA?
So yeah, Chair Barwig, I think that's a really key question here. I'm not certain what that timeline would be. I would have to do a little bit of further work on that, but it's not as simple as just taking the savings from the refinancing and say, paying it off right now or, sometime very soon. It's, again, the way that urban renewal works, it's tax incremental financing. It's over time. So that $6 million savings is realized over the remaining life of the district. And we would have to determine the manner in which we either completed some or none or all or whatever number of projects, and then how we could pay the district down. Realistically, if we just said, if your direction was, let's work on, just paying down the debt and closing sooner than the right now, the 25-26 timeline, I don't think you would really gain a whole lot of time coming backwards. Perhaps a year, perhaps a couple of years. I don't. This is just very kind of rough thinking here. We would have to do some additional work on what that would look like. But again, because that is spread out over the remaining life of the district, it isn't. We don't actually have the $6 million in savings right now today. It's realized over the next few years. So we might gain a little bit of time, but not a lot. You wouldn't be able to say close it in the next year, or even probably a couple of years or something like that.
Okay. And then kind of my last question, I guess, would be, is if we chose to try and pay off the district early, are these projects that can be done with general funds later on? Or if we don't do them now with the URA, are they projects that will go away and never be realized?
Well, that I think the real answer is that depends. The council always has the authority to look at its resources and do what it wishes to do with the city's resources. We would probably have to do these at the expense of some of our other planned projects, depending on which projects. A lot of what we're looking at here are probably transportation related. So it'd be our roads, funding. Some of it might tap into some of our parks money with some of the trails work. The opportunity, I think, that the Urban Renewal Agency has, that the city has with this as its as a tool, is this is a funding source, a revenue source that you wouldn't otherwise have, that is at your disposal to utilize to do the prescribed types of things that are in the goals of the urban renewal plan that were outlined earlier in the presentation. The other part of that, I think the other part of the answer to your question, Chair Barwig, is that the further out we push any projects, the more it costs us down the line. So it's a matter of not just what funding is available and where would that come from, but how much would it cost in some number of years down the road. There is always the discretion of using general fund money, but that is kind of dips into what might be considered operational funding. And again, with the other resources that are available, I think there are a number of projects and items already identified for the next several years for, in particular with our streets fund. So I hope that answers your question. We could probably talk about that issue alone for a good bit of time here, but that's an attempt at a fairly succinct answer to a kind of a lengthy issue, I think.
Yeah, thank you so much. That does answer my question. I guess the final question I would ask is, obviously with, new funding opportunities with the government and whatnot, are there any opportunities that exist that we could get grants and whatnot to do some of these projects versus using the URA funding?
Well, there are always opportunities to look at grants, and we can certainly do that. I think in particular, there are monies that are available for trail-related projects. We could certainly explore. We have some upcoming conversations that we want to have around our ARPA funds that we received from the federal government. Those are the American Recovery Plan funds that we received this year and next year. That's kind of limited to specific types of infrastructure. It's not just a sort of an open checkbook of how we can use that money. So we could look at, are there some components of these projects that fit with that? So yes, there are some potential funds out there, but the grants, we would have to go out and seek those, and they would be competitive, and there's no guarantee on those. And then the things like the ARPA money, we would have to identify which portions might be eligible. And I think that's also a bigger discussion that we want to have in the somewhat near future with the council.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, I would be a huge fan of trying to find any free money that we can find. So if we can do any of these projects with grant money, that would be wonderful. So that concludes my questions. I know that Chief Davis from the fire department is on and wants to have some words as well, but I do see questions from Commissioner Hensley and Commissioner Swoon, so we'll go with them first. And if you have any questions, please put your hand up, and then we'll make sure that Chief Davis gets a chance to speak as well. Commissioner Hensley.
Thank you, Chair Varwig. I would like to see that math as well. To piggyback off of Chair Varwig's question, I would like to see what that payoff date would look like. It's no secret I am a fan of getting this thing sunsetted ASAP, as was outlined in the email we got from Chief Davis, and I'm sure he'll talk about it. The junior taxing districts are suffering for our projects. And as I understand it, the city general fund would gain $750,000 to probably $900,000 a year if that comes back to us instead of going to URA. So my question, I guess, for Scott is, could we earmark those dollars for these projects and do them out of the general fund so that we're not robbing the junior taxing districts for instant gratification?
Yes, Commissioner Hensley, I think going back to my earlier comments, it's sort of an interesting issue, because you're wearing a different hat than your council hat, even though you're the same people. That would probably be a decision that would have to be made at the council within your realm as the city council, which is to say, using city general fund money is a council decision ultimately, right? And we do that through our budget process and with the council's final authority on that. So I think what I'm hearing you say, though, is projecting out when the district closes, the additional revenue that comes into our general fund that right now is diverted into the urban renewal district. How much would that be, and could that money then support doing some of these projects? So we would have to we would have to take a look at some of the projections of what those amounts look like and when and how these projects could be accomplished. But I think, again, what we're looking at there is depending on when the district sunsets and when that revenue starts coming into the city, how many years out that would be, and what then the cost differentiation might be for some of these projects if we move them out, with inflation and escalating costs that would happen. So that would be something that we'd have to do some digging into, and it's an exercise we could certainly do if that's the direction that you all would want us to explore, and we could bring that information back. That would be a pretty, I think that would be a pretty time-intensive work project. So I'd want to make sure that the URA would want us to in fact do that, and that might even be a sort of a cross-check with your other hat as council, that you would say, we want to look at our use of future general fund money for projects that are right now in the urban renewal plan.
I would be interested in seeing that. I understand it might take some staff time. I don't see an emergency here making these projects happen. So if it took some time to get the information and do it right, I would appreciate that. Seeing some dollars come back to the city, to fire, to schools sooner rather than later is definitely my priority. So I would be interested in seeing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Spoon.
Thank you, Chair Varwig. My question is, I know that some of these projects, and the one I'm specifically thinking of is the Logging Trail Bridge, like whether we do improvements to it or not, work needs to be done on it now, right? Like I know there's like big holes in the paint and rusty spots. So if we don't spend money to improve it, we would still need to spend money on that project in the somewhat near future. Is that accurate, Scott?
That is correct.
Okay. So we're going to have to spend some money on it one way or another. In my mind, it makes sense to do a project all together, especially when it involves getting up over 99 and all that's involved in that. But my thought, since Tracy or Commissioner Hensley shared some of hers, is I think a couple of things. I think in terms of earmarking future general fund dollars, I kind of object to tying the hands of a future council on what they can and can't do with the money when they're in these seats. We've kind of shied away from that in the past, but for us to decide how a future council in 5 or 6 years should use their general fund money, it's kind of objectionable to me. So if they want to use general fund money one way or another, I think that's up to them and whoever the city administrator is at the time. Hopefully it's still Scott. I hope he works here forever. But those are decisions that I don't think are really ours to make. We can decide whether to use URA money now or not use it now, but I think it's unfair of us to determine how a future council should use their general funds in 5 to 6 years. My concerns in terms of making the most fiscally responsible choice is that kind of we have two questions, right? Is do we want to do some or all of these projects is one question. And then if we do want to do them, does it make the most financial sense to use URA money now when we can bond at an extremely low rate and inflation hasn't gone up 5 to 6 years worth of inflation? Or do we want to wait 5 or 6 years when certainly the interest rate would be higher if we bonded, and or inflation at what seems to be about 12% right now would turn $1 million project into a $1.6 million project in 5 years? So for me, those are like two questions. And I understand all of the passion around closing the URA, but we also have to make financially responsible choices with the money we have available. And the URA is our tool right now. So for me, I'm interested. I think we can do both. And I think we can have staff on projects that we have the most interest in, figuring out at least a ballpark of what that cost would look like and what that would, and at the same time, they can figure out if we didn't spend any money, how soon could we sunset the URA and what would the projected cost of these projects be in 6 or 7 years? I think we can have staff do both of those things at the same time so we can make a fully informed decision, because I think we kind of need all, it sounds like to make sure that everyone on council feels comfortable voting, we would kind of need all of that information. If the cost of the projects doesn't go up substantially and, inflation doesn't raise the cost of the project, and it's better for our junior taxation districts to wait a couple of years, I can have that conversation. But if it's the most financially responsible thing to do these projects now when we can bond at a low rate and inflation hasn't gone up 5 years worth, I think that's a worthy conversation too. So from my perspective, I'd like to see staff kind of take on both of those tasks. We can decide as a council what projects we're most interested in seeing a cost on. which ones are most important to us, and then kind of let staff tackle both of those projects. What would happen if we did nothing, and what would happen if we did some or all things? That's my perspective.
Thank you. I think that's a fair ask, is to kind of see the math from both sides of it. And, one of the things that I think when you're doing that math, Scott, to consider is historical trends on, obviously things go up and down, right? And so things in 2008 were cheaper than they were in 2001 because of the recession. And so let's take all that in consideration. Let's not just assume everything's going to continue going up. Let's look at, what that looks like. But let's definitely do the math on that, I would say. Commissioner Parker.
I hope you're not saying that you're looking forward to the next recession.
I am not. I hope it never comes.
Well, this is a bit esoteric, but as the graybeard on the commission, let me remind people where we started with the Urban Renewal District, where we used the taxpayers' good faith and credit to build the Camby Pioneer Industrial Park in order to achieve certain goals. And now that the park has been built, that the city put in the infrastructure and did the things that were necessary to bring those businesses here, which increased the taxation ability of those properties. It's now time for the citizens to reap the benefit of their investment. So I think it's entirely appropriate for use of these funds. Secondly, in terms of the list itself, actually, Jamie, I think for me personally, it is in the order of preference. Thirdly, barring a recession, we are currently looking at an inflation rate of 12%. We are also looking at $1 trillion being blasted across this country to every city, county, and state government over the next 5 years, which is going to put a further crush on the availability of supplies and construction. I was informed this week, for example, that one of our major construction partners in town is now 1 year out in terms of doing projects. So in my mind, to delay is to increase the cost. And I think the better we put, the quicker that we put these funds to work, the more the taxpayers get the benefit of their original investment in the Urban Renewal District. So I'm in favor of having staff return to us with a spending plan that would utilize all of the dollars that have been saved through refinance. And for my part, that I like the order that's there. Certainly the first three are locks for me. That's it. Thanks, John.
You're back, Commissioner Parker. Thank you. Commissioner Bajoran, and then Vice Chair Hodson.
Thank you, Chair Varwig. So I do agree there has to be, I think, a balanced approach to how we're looking at this. As a new face, obviously, to it, I'm not as familiar with it, but when we're talking about closing the URA, sunsetting it, and still using, funding that has now been made available, I do think we, owe it to the city of Camby to look at both options equally and really truly weigh them out. And especially with, like Commissioner Parker said about the, inflation, increasing, things like that. I mean, we have to really, make that a priority of talking about that in detail, I think, before we make any decisions on it.
Great, thank you. Vice Chair Hodson.
Thank you, Chair Varwig. Just piggyback a little bit on Commissioner Parker's comments. I've made no qualms about my feelings on the industrial park being our economic engine to our city. That has been the generator of funds for us to be able to do these dream projects and the wish list that's still of items that we still have to look at and want to do, right? To your point, Commissioner Parker, about time for this, for the citizens of Camby to reap some of these rewards. I don't disagree, but I also remind everyone too that we have a civic building and library. We redid First Avenue. We redid Second Avenue. We have a new police station. We're heavily invested in the development of the Dahlia, to name a few things that we have invested in and for the betterment of Camby. No small feat. I think Camby, in terms of the few cities that are out there, have used urban renewal funds well. That might be questioned in some regards. I know Commissioner Hensley and I disagree on police stations and libraries and things, but we'll agree to disagree on some of those things. I do believe that there's an economic vitality that our industrial park has brought, and I do believe that there are some things that we should discuss and look at. Again, I think there was a key point in Scott's comments and Jamie's comments is that the $6 million isn't cash in hand. The $6 million is just, it's a savings, meaning that as we pay this off, we're not having to pay as much. So it's not realized funds necessarily in our pocket to be able to just, so to speak, scratch checks. So I do think that we still need some jurisprudence here on how we approach these things and what are those projects, if we are going to do them, what is going to be the best long-term win for our citizens that have graciously, given us the responsibility to manage the urban renewal district as we get close to the as we get further along here in that. So whatever we decide to work on, I just ask that we continue to be just forthright and direct and deliberate in how we are going to move along our city with these funds. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other questions before we bring in Chief Davis from Fire Department? Commissioner Smith.
Thank you. I just wanted to piggyback on what Commissioner Parker said in terms of my, I don't know that I need to spend all $6 million. It all has to make sense for me, but I certainly think if we're talking to staff about what projects we're interested in seeing cost on, I'd be happy to see any cost. My priorities would be the pedestrian bridge off of the logging road to get down to Fred Meyer. I think people are already doing that and it's not safe right now. So it's a safety issue as well as a vibrancy issue and making our town pedestrian friendly. The other thing is the logging bridge art and making it increasing the look of it, improving the look of it. Partially because I think that it's the first thing people see when they come into town, and right now it's a rusty bridge with chain link fence, and I think that is prevents us from maybe getting as much business or engaging as many people that come through here economically. And also we have to do some work up there anyway. So to me, I'd rather do the work once instead of twice. So from my perspective, those would be the two priorities, but I'd be happy to see cost on any project that that council and the commission are interested in seeing.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think that's a wonderful idea. And I just want to say that I am in favor of some of these projects, but I also want to make sure that we are respecting our junior districts who have sacrificed quite a bit over the years to for the URA. I want to make sure that we're respecting them in all of the decisions that we make as well. So, Commissioner Banks.
Thank you, Chair Varwig, and I agree with that sentiment. These are good projects. I would certainly prioritize the logging road bridge for the reasons that have been stated, and also a easier way to get into Fred Meyer, and for the reasons for Councilor Spoon said. I definitely would love to see us move forward on those. And the other ones, I'd like to see what they cost, but I'm not sure I'd feel like we need to do that now. But that logging road bridge has not been painted in, well, I don't think since the city has gotten hold of it. It appears to be the same industrial 1940s bridge style as when it was replacing the previous bridge. I don't know what the legality is of us bridging the railroad or providing an access into Fred Meyer. If our plan is to loop it around on the south side with that ramp and then walk on 99E, I think we're still going to see people just crossing the railroad tracks because it's a whole lot closer. And so I'd really like us to look into a bridge into the, what's it called, Camby Marketplace, I think is the name of that facility. The other thing is I had a question in the presentation that it seemed like it was okay for us to paint the logging road bridge, but it was unclear about whether we could do decorative fencing. Did I hear that right? We can't landscape, but we might be able to do the fencing or an artwork thing?
Are you?
I think I would say that obviously because that's at the edge of the district, all of the options we'd want to make sure that we were able to successfully fund with urban renewal funds, that it wasn't somehow outside. That map is a little bit difficult, as you guys saw, a little difficult to see exactly where the bridge goes. But if the entire logging bridge is in the urban renewal district, then I think that we would be able to use that to paint and add fencing and artwork. If for some reason half of it's out or a quarter of it's out or something like that, we would just have to look into that a little bit further. But if it's within, those projects would certainly be projects that were outlined in the urban renewal plan and outlined in those goals that the urban renewal plan states.
Yeah, and I would,
Jamie, that clarifies it.
Okay. And I would just add that I think what I'm getting is a good sense of where you're at is giving staff the direction that we needed tonight, which is to go out and do some further exploration. We can do the research on what it would look like to perhaps pay the district off early, but also do some refinement of what, with that list that we presented. And it sounds like there's at least some interest in doing some of the work on the bridge and the connector path or connector piece, whatever that ends up looking like. What we would like to do is, I just didn't want to expend a bunch of staff time and energy and perhaps resources on doing this work until I had a comfort level of where the Urban Renewal Commission was at. And I think we're getting a good sense of that tonight. So we can do a deeper dive on the types of questions that you just asked on a specific project, for example, Commissioner Banks. So we'll do some of that work and bring back some refinement on this discussion.
Scott, why are you doing that? Is it possible to do a hybrid approach on the two to see if potentially we could do some of these projects and still maybe pay off the district a year early and maybe get back to that original 24-25 payoff date that when the district was first set up, to see if there's maybe a happy medium there between the two?
Certainly. Yeah, we can definitely do that.
Great. Vice Chair Hodson and then Commissioner Smith. You are muted, sir.
Rookie mistake. So Jamie, could you bring up that list of projects again?
Certainly. One moment.
Thank you. So thanks, Jamie. So again, looking back, right? So goal 4, right? Beautification or and whatnot. I agree. The logging bridge is an eyesore. It is and has been a very unattractive gateway entry into our community. It has been sorely neglected. I wish we could go back and go after the company that did such a poor repair job on that bridge. To Christopher Bangs, Commissioner Bangs' point, I think Tracy, Greg, and I were on the council when they repainted it, and it seemed like the rust spots developed within 5 years of the job being done. It is thoroughly unattractive, and I think we we are long overdue to address it. The issue of the footbridge access to the logging trail. I know that there is going to be needed a lot of conversation with the Samuels short line. The comment came up about people cutting through the fence and crossing the railroad tracks. That is a real safety hazard for not only the pedestrians that choose to do that, but also for the engineers on those trains. I'm a big guy. It takes me about 10 yards to stop when I'm at a full sprint. So can you imagine how long it would take a train to come to a complete stop when it's at a roll as they're changing out cars and things. So I think we've got to address that piece along with the footbridge aspect and how we drop it far enough over to where it clears the tracks or it comes down just alongside of it. The other piece that I look at here, and I don't see it on the list necessarily, and maybe since Jerry's here tonight, I'm going to ask, I don't want him to get out of here without having the opportunity to be on camera because I know how much he enjoys it, was to ask about 2nd Avenue or the intersection at 2nd and Ivy here in our downtown. I'm not really seeing that on this list. I know that one time we did it. The brickwork is atrocious, has been. I know we've talked about this as a council as well. So, Jerry, can you tell me where that falls in? It's obviously not here on this list, but what list is it on?
That has been brought up several times, and it's kind of been, I guess, put to the wayside on it. We haven't gone anywhere with it. So on all of this list, this downtown stuff that we got, finishing 2nd Avenue, all them, that potentially falls in the area, could be added to those projects if it became a priority. I've wanted to fix them for quite some time, had some conversations back and forth, but really wanted some input on what we do with that. Whether we do concrete like we did on 1st Avenue, put it back bricks, or just pave it with nice, I know Councilor Parker likes the nice white striping. So that's something I can get together with Scott though, and we could just start putting that on the radar.
Again, it's a conversation piece. If we're looking at things within the urban renewal district, and I know that this isn't, that means making adjustments to the urban renewal district plan, because again, once it was already on the plan, now we've checked it off as being completed, but it's gone. It's gone to a level of needing. It's gone to a level of disrepair. So it's just a conversation piece here. I just think we should, also consider that aspect. I do like completing the rest of 2nd Avenue through, down to Elm Street there. I think that would be great. I think Community Park, and Wade Park, I think are things to come on that piece. When we talk about the 12 downtown alleys, what is that we're actually contemplating doing or talking about doing?
If you go look at behind the backstop, you'll see where there's major potholing that we have to fill continuously. All of between Douglas, all through there's alleys where all of the sewer utilities run through them actually, and it's a 20-foot wide area that we have, and the garbage trucks also use them. So some of them are gravel, some of them are paved. They have no storm system, so water runs onto the private property out of the alleys. So next time you're down there, drive around and look, and you'll really see. I know Councilor Parker has sent me pictures for repairs down there quite a bit for them alley areas.
So again, and in terms of Jerry and Scott, in terms of a necessity on that particular one, the alleyway piece, 1 not important, 10 high importance. Where do those fall in both of your opinions?
Go ahead. They fall. I mean, that stuff's really, really falls on a high important level for me, because it's hard for us to get funding on the alleyways. And what gave me the idea is I was over with, I think, Jamie Stickle a while back in Woodburn, and they did a similar thing and repaired all their alleys and did the storm system. And it really got me thinking they look nice. It turned out great. So the continuous maintenance and everything that we have to do on those kind of makes it a priority for a public works person.
Yeah, and I would concur with that. It's this, I think urban renewal on that one in particular, whereas some of the street projects, obviously you could say, well, let's look at how that fits into our streets capital improvement plan. But the alleys are a really good project for urban renewal funds. I've seen a number of cities do that, as Jerry noted one of them, and I've seen some others do the same on alleyways. So I think that one would be a particularly good urban renewal project.
So again, some of these projects, this particular one, the alleyways, not a sexy project. That's something that we look at the logging bridge and getting that redone, and the footbridge, sexy project, definitely impactful. People see it, it'll stand out, it'll pop. Going down and doing alleyways and things like that, not sexy. People won't see it as much of it. But to me, we got to take the good with the bad and address some of those less attractive projects in this list here, along with some of the prettier projects that we do. So I just put that out there for food for thought. Thank you. I'll zip it right now.
Thank you, sir. And Scott, just for information, we can't do all of the projects on this list, correct? We can only do certain ones.
Yeah, I think that's correct. And that's what we're going to have to bring you is some better information on that. Tonight wasn't supposed to be that, our intent wasn't to break down each project by cost. I think we actually need to do some updated cost estimating at any rate, but was to get a sense of maybe the priority list for the Urban Renewal Agency in particular here, obviously. And I think we're getting a sense of how we want to do that. But what we need to do then is go back and focus on kind of looking at some options for you to consider as to the pricing and the costing. And then as has been mentioned, also some information on perhaps paying down the district debt a little sooner or what the options might be there. So, but yes, I think you're correct, Chair Varwig, that this is more of a wish list of a number of items, but it is likely not able to be funded. All of the projects would not be able to be funded, I don't believe.
Great. Commissioner Spoon has some comments, and then Commissioner Henson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Varwig. One of the things that we talked about when we met initially, Chair Varwig, that is not part of this list of projects, but that I was hoping maybe staff could give us some information on, is also in our URA plan was a mural committee. And it's come to my attention that one or two downtown business owners are open to a mural if it's related to like the history of Camby. And I would really love some more information about what that could look like, how much it would cost us if we partnered with them, because I think what we're seeing in vibrant downtowns all over right now is that having those murals really adds to a sense of place, and they're a relatively comparatively low cost way to create that sense of place in downtowns. I know Oregon City just redid one of their murals that was faded, and it's pretty spectacular. And I've had like 5 or 6 people mention it to me being downtown that actually never even noticed it was there before, because it's always been there. But it just kind of reminded me that perhaps there's an opportunity for us to have another low cost investment in our downtown that adds to that sense of place and vibrancy. So I have no sense of how much a mural costs, what a partnership would look like with a property owner or anything like that. So just some really basic information to see if it would make sense at all to go down that path. But I would be open to having like a citizen mural committee if that looks like the way we're going, and they can do some of that legwork as well. So just kind of a high level thought about one other low cost thing we could potentially do with the URA that is hard, otherwise doesn't have a lot of funding options.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I did plan on touching on that, because I know that was one of the things that we talked about. I'm a huge fan of murals, and a mural committee would be wonderful. I think anybody who watches HGTV has seen, the hometown takeover where the group took over Wetumpka, Alabama, and they did a lot of murals down there. I think, especially with the introduction of Artomatic in our downtown core and just some other creative businesses that are around. I think murals would be, like you said, a low-cost way of really updating our community. We have some spots where I think some current murals could be updated. And so I would love to see what that would look like. I think as I was thinking about it after our conversation regarding it, I'd love to see if that could somehow tie into the facade improvement program, if that could somehow support some murals as well. So I'm a huge fan of it. And I would love for staff to come back with some, and how we can make that happen, not if, but how.
And I'll just comment on that real quick. And Jamie was just also helping to remind me of this, but we do have our facade improvement program does kind of touch on this. I don't know that I think what we're getting at here is actually doing more promotion of this idea. But we definitely think that this already falls within our current facade program, and we could look at enhancing it or promoting it or doing some further work. But we'll do some more work on this and include this in our follow-up conversation when that happens.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Scott. Commissioner Hensley.
Thank you, Chair Varweg. I just wanted to kind of circle back on my previous comments, plus make an addition. Of course, we still know my priority is to pay this thing off as quickly as we can. So I definitely want to see, more data, the better for me. So paying it off and doing nothing versus some of the projects. So some of the projects, I would agree with Commissioners Spoon and Parker and Bangs and pretty much everybody, I think. The logging trail bridge and the access to 99 with a ramp or whatever that looks like, painting and decorations, that would be a priority for me. That is something that would bring, like Commissioner Hudson said, the sexy project to town. And it is kind of the welcome to Camby from the north side of the state. So that is something that would be a good project. Listening to conversation, I would not have guessed that alleyways would be a priority, but I would like to see the numbers on that. I do have a question for Jerry after my comments. I would like to know exactly what that would look like. What is the goal? What would the project be to do those alleyways? What would you be doing to them exactly? What would your satisfaction level be? And the Second Avenue, if we can match it to First Avenue and fix those bricks, I'd like to see the numbers on that as well. So just all that data so we can make a more informed decision. That would be good. And the rest of the list, I think, could be budgeted out of general funds in the future, not tying the hands of future council, but because if we're blessed to have Scott as the community's city administrator, I think he understands the spirit of all of this. And as the chief budget officer would probably be able to manage to plug those in where they are appropriately budgeted in the future. And that's all I have. Thanks, Chair.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Vice Chair Hudson.
Sorry, I know that we've got Chief Davis in the wings, and I know he wants to address us on this topic. I'm going to throw this out here. We're talking about numbers in terms of dollars for these projects. How do we close the district early? What I've not heard, and maybe it's a surprise to me, but I'll put it out there. What if it's not closed? What if it's extended or redrawn? Or again, once something like this closes, it goes away. It truly becomes a huge feat to do another one or recreate the wheel. I've said it at the outset. My initial comments on this was our urban renewal district has become our economic engine. And it has given us this conversation to actually debate and have conversation on these projects and to do the things that we have done in our city, that we've got brick and mortar to show what we've done, as well as stuff in the ground that we have done. So, we're talking one way. I suggest maybe how big of a building is that to leap over to do the other? And I will end with that. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Her camera is turned off, but I still can see the steam coming out of Commissioner Hensley's ears when you said that. Perfect.
Camera.
Any other comments before we bring Chief Davis in to address us? No, perfect. Well, I think that we owe it to him as one of the junior districts that has sacrificed so much for us to have this URA to be able to give us some words. So I think we're bringing him in right now. Sorry for the awkward silence. I'll try not to sing a song while we wait for him, because that would be more awkward than the silence.
Silence can be okay.
Okay, I'm back. Buddy.
All right. Chief Davis, I see. There you are. Hello, sir.
Thank you, Chair Varwig. And I know you guys are going to be jumping into a city council meeting, so I'll try to keep my comments brief. And you have received a copy of my comments, and hopefully I might be able to answer any questions that you might have too. But the one thing is for sure is since I started as fire chief at Camby Fire District, we have enjoyed a very collaborative relationship with the city administration and the Urban Renewal Agency. And we've worked very hard to try to also support the Urban Renewal Agency with the projects that have happened. But I thought I would just give you a little bit of history going back, since we do have a new council person, actually 2 to 3 new council people that weren't around when we worked out agreements with the city and the Urban Renewal Agency and the fire district. But back in 2017, we had a joint meeting with the Urban Renewal Agency district, and we agreed that we would sunset the Urban Renewal Agency in 2024-25. Then City Administrator Rick Robinson later that year came to the fire district and asked for support of adding a 1% extension to the Urban Renewal District off of Walnut Street and New Era for the purpose of the bypass. Based on there is a new law, an Urban Renewal Agency law, that requires anything over 1% to come over to the junior taxing districts for approval. So what Mayor Hodson was talking about would have to come to the fire district and to the other 2 largest junior taxing districts for approval if you're looking at any type of extensions. The Camby Urban Renewal Agency maximized the allowable area of extension and without gaining the support of the junior taxing districts. The prior administrator, Rick Robinson, at the time also explained a few additional projects the URA was hoping to include, which would result in extending the URA to 25-26. The fire board very much appreciated the transparent communications of Rick Robinson and in good faith with the fire district agreed to support those projects, which at the time and have been completed. At that time, prior Administrator Robinson did talk about the 99 Bridge painting, but in the end eliminated that project from the future URA project use in order to pay off the urban renewal in 25-26. The URA recently refinanced the bond debt, which you're talking about tonight. The URA is now considering adding additional projects, including the 99 Bridge project. In fairness and respect to the junior taxing districts, all of the citizens of Camby and to the citizens of Camby, the 99 bridge should be accomplished or may be accomplished with alternative funding mechanisms such as newly approved infrastructure bills or one of the numerous grant opportunities that the city of Camby would be eligible for. So I appreciate that hopefully the city administrator will look into some of those. And I know that President Biden infrastructure bill is sending a lot of money to the state of Oregon. I'm providing the URA tonight with how much each taxing district, including the city of Camby, is losing each year to the Urban Renewal Agency, which you have the chart on the handout that I sent to you. In respect of the good faith agreements that the URA has communicated to the fire district, the sunset date of the URA is to be no later than 25-26. And I appreciate your discussion and continued support for closing this in 25-26. The fire district's permanent rate is $1.54 per 1,000 assessed valuation. Because of the URA, our rate is $1.32 per 1,000 assessed valuation throughout the entire city. So if you look at your city tax bill, you will see that you are paying for the URA out of your home property tax bill. Total loss to the fire district in this year alone was over $500,000. The only taxable properties that pay the full amount of the $1.54 assessment per 1,000 assessed valuation are outside the city boundaries. Each household within the city of Camby pays property taxes to the URA. The city of Camby is losing $952,516.87 per year to the URA and continuing to grow. You won't see the benefits of the industrial park until the URA sunsets, and at which time then you'll start seeing the benefits of the industrial park, which I fully support infrastructure. And I think what the Urban Renewal Agency did in the Pioneer Industrial Park was outstanding. In the future, we will see benefits by putting in that infrastructure. Where the Camby Fire District is receiving the amounts today, the funds would be utilized if we receive the funds today for additional staffing for our fire apparatus, and especially for the Northside Fire Station. Camby Fire District emergency calls are increasing at a higher rate than what we had anticipated at the time. You'll recall that they eliminated voter-approved annexations, which caused substantial growth to the city, which in turn has increased our call volume considerably. If the URA does not sunset soon or as forecasted, the fire board would be forced to examine increasing levy amounts for the lost revenue to the taxpayers. The fire district respectfully requests that the Urban Renewal Agency to utilize the funds from the refinancing to help pay off the current balance owed in order to sunset the Urban Renewal Agency as soon as possible. So we support option 3 as presented tonight. The amount, we did some quick math while we were sitting here, and basic math tells us that the total loss per year to the junior taxing districts, including the city, is $4,478,987.14, which if you take that amount, if you were looking at how early you could pay it off, it's just a rough estimate of about 16 months. And those figures came directly from the assessor's office. We called the assessor's office and they stepped us through exactly how to access that information through our finance division. And so it would be relatively easy, I guess, to try to figure out how early you could pay that off if you chose to do that. But I'm just coming to you as your fire department trying to explain our plight in regards to the fact that we're running 3-4 calls at a time, and we're doing it with very minimal staffing, and that call volume just continues to increase. But we've had great working relationships too with the city administration and with the Urban Renewal Agency. And many of the things that the Urban Renewal Agency has done has been very positive, and we strongly, but as you know, even some of the businesses that are going to be building in the industrial area are outside the Urban Renewal Agency, which tells me they're going to come to Camby one way or the other, with or without us putting in further infrastructure. So thank you. I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate it. Looks like we have a couple of questions, so I'll, if you can stick around for a few minutes and possibly answer any questions from our commissioners. I will let Commissioner Hensley go first and Commissioner Parker, you will be second.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief Davis, for all of that. And just to reiterate, more data is better. So Scott, I would appreciate that. But I just wanted to circle back because I didn't actually get my answer from Jerry about what his plans were for the alleyways.
Okay. We would do two different options, but basically we would just do a 20-foot pave with installing storm system with inverted crowns, so the water goes to the center into a storm collection system and goes away paved. Woodburns and other cities have done a little fancier deal where they made that center strip concrete and then paved on both sides of it. Nothing real fancy, just getting them all upgraded.
Great, thank you. Does that answer your question, Commissioner Hensley?
Yes, thank you.
Great. And Commissioner Parker.
Yeah, I'll try and make this quick, but Scott, when you are doing this data dive, would you also please double check the numbers that Chief Davis brought us? This has been a discussion that's gone on 12 years between the city of Camby and the fire district. But my guess is, Jim, what you were using as lost revenue is that you were using the tax rate against the increased value of the industrial park property, which how many times have we had this conversation, which would not have an increased value if it was still farmland. So, Scott, if you could at least, I mean, it sounds kind of shocking to talk about millions of dollars of lost money. So if we could just get a clarification on how those numbers are assembled, whether in fact, without the urban renewal district, what would the assessment be on that? Because it doesn't seem quite fair to say that you're losing money on funds that have been increased due to the fact that the industrial park is there. So we don't need to resolve that tonight, but Scott, I think since the chief has placed that on the record that there are lost funds, if we could find out whether the calculations are based upon the current assessed value with $1 million buildings on it or farmland that was in ag deferral.
Thank you. And I did provide those that data to the city administrator versus email from the county already.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Hensley.
Thank you, Chair Farweg. Yeah, I do recall that when Renata Mengelberg was here, we used to get a urban renewal report. It was quite lengthy, beautiful pictures of all the projects. And years ago, I asked her to insert a chart that showed us the deferred amounts that the junior taxing districts was basically foregoing. And she did include that, but I don't recall seeing that report recently. So if we could resurrect that, that would be helpful. And I believe that yes, it is the fact that to Commissioner Parker's point, it's the assessed value has increased because of the improvements. It was farmland, but we also have new residents and new businesses on that land that Camby Fire is having to service, and Camby Fire is not getting the dollars to service it because those people in those districts aren't paying the taxes to do that. So it's coming on the backs of us who have been paying into the district all this time. So I don't know. In a nutshell, they're getting free fire service, and it's a hardship on them. And I understand that, just like the schools aren't getting the money that they should be getting. So my interest is getting it closed as soon as possible so the monies can go back to the services that are being used by the people that are coming into the places that we're improving. So, but back to Scott, I would like to see that report come back. If I'm sure Jamie knows where it is. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Spoon.
Yeah, this is a question for Scott. I happen to not recall the exact conversation about, promising to sunset the URA at a particular day. I remember talking about the sunset, but also talking about how we can't really tie the hands of a future commission. However, I am curious about the Rick Robinson removing the logging bridge from the project list. It seems to me that would be a policy decision, not an administrative decision. And certainly the Urban Renewal Commission never voted on whether or not to remove that from the list. So Scott, from your perspective, if would that have been an administrative decision? Or, I mean, if council wants to advance on that project that we've always had on our list, I kind of don't really see it as the administrator's job to make promises to remove projects that have been adopted by council. So it's from that perspective, if Rick did say, we'll take this off the list, are we bound to that? Because that seems like a policy decision from an adopted URA project list rather than an administrative decision.
Yeah, I understand your question. I would have to do a bit of research. Chief Davis and I actually were having a discussion about that as well, and it prompted me to want to kind of dig in a little bit further on that. I would say you're correct that the creation of lists or changes to that list, ultimately that comes back to the Urban Renewal Commission, and that's made through policy decisions or through your budgeting process or both. But I want to be careful because I wasn't obviously privy to those conversations, and I saw some of you shaking your head that you don't recall that being a policy decision or discussion, but I can't really speak to that. But I would, my take on that is, that's ultimately a policy decision for the Urban Renewal Commission, and we'd have to review that. I guess the other piece to this that I would add, and it's been a thought I've had a couple different times in the conversation, is that the list of projects is, the way our urban renewal plan reads is that it outlines goals and manners in which you ultimately have the authority to decide what you want to direct us to go and do with projects or not. And everything on the list that we showed you tonight falls within those goals. In fact, some of the projects hit multiple of those goals. So I'm comfortable with the fact that they at least qualify to be within the use of the urban renewal funds. I just can't speak directly to prior discussions or whatever that wasn't privy to. But yeah, I agree. It's a I was going to say council, but it's a commission policy decision ultimately how you spend your money.
Thanks, Scott. I appreciate that. One thing that I know that Rick Robinson was very good at was suggestions and very strong opinion on certain things of what we should do and what we shouldn't do. So at least for me, Scott, I'd love to give you that same permission of really giving us your opinion on what we should do and what we shouldn't do. Obviously, ultimately, it comes back to the commission on the decisions to be made, but I do think that we have you in place for a reason, and we trust you to make some suggestions. So I give you permission to push back on us some. Obviously, that's just my personal opinion, but if there's things that you think would be foolish for us to do or things that we should do, I'd love to hear that from your perspective as well. I know it can be easy to tell a board or a commission what everybody wants to hear. So I think that, we'd love to hear some opinion from your side as well. At least I would. So I give you that permission. If there's no other questions, one thing before we adjourn, I want to mention is that we have talked about doing a joint work session with the fire district. And I think, Scott, that it might be beneficial to invite some of the other junior districts as well, such as the school district. I think over the years, as Chief mentioned, we have had a really good working relationship, and I want to make sure that we continue to have a really good working relationship with our junior districts. I don't want to be the schoolyard bully that says, because we make all the decisions, you have to, go with what we say, which ultimately is what seems to happen. But I want to make sure that they are at the table with us when we're making these decisions. So if we could include at the very least the school district in possibly that work session as well, as we talk through some of these things, I would appreciate that. Commissioner Parker.
A question on that. Are you talking about peer-to-peer? Would it be the school board and the fire board meeting with us?
Yeah, that's what I think. There's been some conversation about having a joint session with the fire board, and I think having peer-to-peer the school board as well.
Okay, because in the past, and perhaps even before you were on the council, when these sort of things happened, it seemed lopsided because the council would meet with the superintendent and the fire chief. So it seems to me what you're talking about is a collaborative thing of the policymakers.
I think that.
Yeah, that's what I'd love to see. I'd love to see the policymakers meeting together because the Chief Davis and Superintendent Downs would only be able to report back to their boards what we decided. And so I think it would be nice to have a collaborative meeting. And I imagine there's 7 of us, and the fire board is 5 people, 6 people, and the school board is a lot of people as well. That's a lot of discussion. So it might be a long meeting, but I think that it would be very valuable for all of us to meet together regarding the Urban Renewal Agency. So that would be what I would love to see happen. If there's no other discussion, I know we have a city council meeting to go to. Chief, thank you so much for being with us tonight. Chief English, I see you there as well. Thank you for joining us. I will take a motion to adjourn our meeting. Vice Chair Hudson.
Just for all of us in the viewing audience, our TV studio needs about 4 or 5 minutes to just reset and whatnot. So we'll need to take a small 5-minute hiatus while they do that piece. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, sir.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All right. So it's been moved by Commissioner Hensley, seconded by Commissioner Bangs to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Perfect. That is unanimous. See you guys in a few minutes.